I was born in Wilmington, Delaware, and I lived there until I was 9 years old, and then my family lived overseas in Switzerland for 3 years, and so I kind of grew up there. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. My dad worked for the DuPont company, and he was a purchasing agent, so he purchased raw materials for the company, and my mother raised us. I went to the College of Hard Knocks, including planting trees, working on a fishing boat, building. I built a biogas plant in Ireland. Yeah, I did lots of different jobs, but I like to try different things because, you know, that's kind of who I am. I enjoy doing all sorts of different sort of jobs, and so that's. All my adult life I made beer and wine and cider, you know, kind of as a home brewer, as a hobby, and I always enjoyed trying new experiments that way. I was sort of waiting to see, you know, what would happen with it, but I was also in the middle of a project in Ireland at the time. I was building a biogas plant there, and I was working on completion of an old farmhouse, stone farmhouse that I had bought to remodel, to save from falling down. And so I was in the middle of that project. And but then one summer I came back and looked at the distillery a little closer and thought, okay, this is something I'd really love to do. You have to be able to do a lot of things to be a distiller. It's more than just you know, turning valves. This equipment behind me is basically constructed here by me, and I maintain it. Yeah, we were in Barnet, Vermont. We were off the grid for part of the time. We were kind of back in the woods. It was fine when we weren't able to sell our product from our distillery, but when that became an option, we had to move, and so we looked all around the state quite a lot to try and find a good location for retail sales and exposure, and so we found this here in Quechee Gorge Village on Route 4, and we've been open now for about 6 weeks, I guess, and I think that it's proving to go really well there, and so we're happy we came. The most exciting thing, I think, is every time you make a batch of product and you mix it and you start to filter it and you stick your glass under it and you taste it and it's perfect, that's exciting. It's always exciting, every time. So. Well, I really love the Vermont Gold vodka, the maple-based vodka. Using maple as a substrate is very strange, you know, and but it just makes a really fantastic product. Well, we make a vodka from fermented lactose. There's yeast, there's you know, some nutrients in there, but basically it's a substrate of maple and yeast that creates a fermentation. It produces a 192 proof raw alcohol, and then we use distilled water to bring that back to 80 proof vodka. So that's really the ingredients. Wow. We're experimenting at this time with all sorts of different future products, and yeah, those products, as you work on them, you find, you know, some things work and some don't always, you know. We have an apple brandy coming out on before too long that is very good, but during the learning process of that, yeah, sometimes not everything comes out perfectly. I think The best day was when this distillery in this location started to operate. I think that it was, I think that it's the most positive move the company has made. You know, Vermont is now allowing us to sell our product from our distillery, and that's why we brought the building down here. We have a fantastic store there, but when we actually, the day I fired it up and got this distillery running, I knew that we were here, and that was a very exciting day. There's a lot of valves in a distillery, and liquid is going to go down the drain if a valve is left to allow it to happen. And it's very possible some of the valves can look like they're closed and not quite be closed, and you know. So the worst day was a day when when I came in the morning, the still was empty. And it was not supposed to be. I generally like, you know, microbrewery beers, and you know, I like nice spirits. But I suppose, you know, on a hot day, sometimes I like one of those really cheap, really light beers, real cold. You know, ordinarily I wouldn't drink that, but that's what I guess that would be a guilty pleasure. My last drink would be a Vermont Gold, straight up with a lemon twist, in a cocktail glass. I recently, last year, I visited the Jameson Brewery, or distillery, excuse me, Jameson Distillery in Ireland. And it was a fascinating tour because you're not actually allowed to go into the modern distillery, but the modern distillery only opened in, I think, the late 70s. Up until that point, they were in this thing that was, I think Jameson has been around for about 200 years. And it was in those original buildings. And, you know, it ran off water wheels, and basically the distillery was just, the original buildings were as they were, and it's a really fascinating tour, well worth seeing, you know, to see how it's all done. But ones I'd like to visit, yeah, there's lots of them. I'd love to visit, you know, I'd love to visit some of the big vodka distilleries, you know, but also whiskey and rum distilleries. I enjoy seeing distilleries, so. Well, mostly I watch films, but I do kind of have a favorite television show, and it involves a lot of drinking. It's Mad Men. And it's not because of the drinking, but I enjoy the fashion of it. And, you know, it's a time I remember too, but I would have been one of the little kids in the show. But I remember the time well, so. Babette's Feast was a great one. There was one, I can't think of, it was a film about noodles, and it was called Tampopo, I think. It was a Japanese film that was good. I have to say I'm kind of disappointed to hear that the new James Bond film is allowing him to have a can of beer in the film. I think that's a little disappointing because he shouldn't be having vodka, really. You know, so much of news now is CNN, or it's completely national, and it's not focusing on your area, even though you can tune into the more local programs. But you people focus on things that are really happening in our community, and that's, I think, important for us to see. You know, the really local coverage and interests for our area is great for us all to know. And otherwise, it's difficult to find it all the time.